Welcome, baseball fans, to the Highland Bullpen Baseball Podcast. The heat is on, and that doesn't happen very often in Scotland, but it happens at this time of year every year in the world of MLB. We're approaching the final lap of the regular season, and our teams have had pretty good seasons to date. Alan, is Detroit Tigers currently top of the list of the Bullpen Bro teams with 70 wins to date. Alan, the Tigers have looked like they took an early lead. They've looked like it was going to be a runaway season for them. But are you getting a little bit nervous that gap's closed a little bit over recent weeks?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the answer to that is yes. You fluctuate to and from the fact that until 12 months ago, when we made our trip to Chicago and the Tigers, which we'd always take responsibility for, the Tigers went on a tear, had a phenomenal record, then the season got to playoffs. In the sort of 6-7 years we've been doing this, or however long it is, we've never really contemplated the Tigers as a winning team, as a playoff team. Then all of a sudden they did it. They went crazy at the start of this year, best team in baseball. Kept that going all the way through to the All-Star break. And now we find ourselves in an odd situation. I think we had, at one point, there was like a 12-game lead, which is now, I think, 6.5-game lead over the Guardians. It's one of those things, if it was your football team, you would say, if you're a golfer or whatever, you'd say, well, if you offered me that at the start of the season, you'd take it. You would absolutely take it. It's interesting. It's a big lead, but then you think, gosh, I think there's still something like 40 games left in the season. 6 of them are against the Guardians. Looking at the Tigers' schedule, August and early September, sorry about that, Skelts, is a time when we need to be picking up some wins, because we finish with the Mets, the Yankees, I think the Astros, and 6 games with the Guardians, as I say there as well. So we've got to strengthen that lead. Guardians are going well, but it's put us through a range of emotions I hadn't experienced as a baseball fan. It's people were annoyed, Tigers fans were annoyed, frustrated with the lack of big activity in the transfer window, the trade deadline. But the Tigers always had their studs. They were doing phenomenally well. Did you have a good clubhouse there? Was there good vibes? There were signs before the last few days, before the break, they were struggling. But why would you mess things up? Why would you change things? So, yeah, been through a range of emotions. They went, at one point post the All-Star break, I think they went something like 1 win and 12. But at this point, I think they're 9-6 in the last 15 games. So 9-6 is sufficient. If you do 9-6 through to the end of September, you're going to be in the playoffs. The other aspect of the playoffs as well is the seeding. Top 2 teams obviously get to a position where they're going to avoid the wild card round. So that's absolutely what we want to do. But are you getting greedy? Are you asking for too much? Are you expecting too much? it's hard to know. I don't know if you guys look on in from the outside of the Tigers, if you have any particular thoughts or what to do. Yeah, Dave Jr., what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's one of these things. You're right to bring the football aspect back to Alan, and the thing that always humbles me with something like this is, would you rather be the Tigers just now, or would you rather be the Guardians?
Yes, yeah,
It's sometimes there is a case of you want your cake and to eat it. You're always going to have a rough patch through the season, especially 162 games. The Tigers have, touch wood, done the hard work. Hopefully, again, like you said, over those last 15 games, going 9-6.
Yeah.
9-6 is a really strong indicator of form, and I know that
600, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know that the three of you guys stand a much better chance of reaching the playoffs than my own team. But I think the Tigers, I think it's more about getting there now. But you deserve to be there, and you're capable of being there. And I think it's just testing those nerves over those next few weeks, Alan. But the Guardians, they're a team that just don't flush. Every year they seem to be there. They've always had a good pitching staff. They know what to do to win divisions or to make wild card spots, and they're a worthy foe.
Absolutely. I think as well there's something about Detroit not having been in this position for a while. Al, like obviously they've improved in recent years, but it's been a while since they were the kind of team holding a division lead, really almost expected objectively to be able to complete this last quarter of the regular season and clinch that title or win their own division there. So I think there's probably just the fear of the unfamiliar. But to be fair, when it comes to being unfamiliar with success, nobody can excel more than my own Seattle Mariners as well. So we're also in the slightly unlikely position, but happy position of being a real, genuine contender, both to hopefully claw back that game deficit we face with the Houston Astros at the moment, but definitely to keep our lead in that kind of wild card race ahead of the Yankees and Yorkshire Dave's own Boston Red Sox, who are in that mix as well. So the Mariners had a very good trade deadline, I think, bringing in Eugenio Suarez, bringing him back, and Josh Naylor as well. So adding some real power, some real quality to that middle part of the lineup there. We are the strongest we've been certainly in my last 10, 15 years of the Mariners, probably more than that. So I think now it'd be disappointing if we didn't get to the playoffs and didn't give a good account of ourselves. Obviously, it's far too early to think of anything beyond that, but I'm not sure. I know Milwaukee are a force of nature at the moment, but in general, I'm not sure there's that many outstanding teams this season. So I think the postseason could perhaps be more open than is usually the case. But certainly for the Mariners, very happy to be where we are. And like the Tigers, over the last 10 games, we're 8-2. Lost a couple to Baltimore, it looks like now, but would absolutely take this. If he offered us this, as Dave Jr. said at the start of the season, then would absolutely have taken this position at the moment. And Boston Red Sox, obviously Yorkshire Dave, a far more successful team. Would you have taken, do you think, asking that same question, would you have taken this position at this stage before the first pitch was thrown this season?
Not quite. I think I hoped for something a little better. It's been a lot has happened since our sort of opening broadcast when we made our predictions, and it has been an up and down season for Red Sox so far. And the most recent series, they lost 3 out of 4 in Houston, but Boston still find themselves actually in second place in the AL East. They're only 4.5 games back, actually, and they're 1.5 games above New York Yankees and plus 1.5 games in terms of a wild card spot. So Boston are actually 10 games above 500, 66 and 56, which is a percentage of 541, which I don't know if I can use this word on air. Extrapolated over 162 games would give the Red Sox 87 or 88 wins, which may be good enough for the playoffs, but it's somewhere off my prediction of 92 wins, so probably was a bit hopeful at the beginning. But as I say, a lot has happened, and the biggest talking point, which you probably heard, was the Rafi Devers trade, our sort of star player, which not anyone anyone really saw coming. The explanation seems to be that he'd become a bit of a disruptive presence in the dugout and not so much a team player. It's a long story, but he refused to play first base and then openly criticised the ownership, which didn't help his cause. Next thing you know, he's been traded to the Giants, and it could actually, I've seen it described as a bit of a salary dump. He had a 10-year plus contract, $300 million, and the Giants ate all of that. So and the fact that the ownership didn't really use this money to trade big at the deadline, and that's seen huge criticism. I mean, they're not slow to criticize Boston Red Sox fans, and they expected them to trade big for another quality starter and maybe another slugger. But they haven't really. But they're still in the mix. There's still 40 games to go, so a lot can happen. They've got 7 games to play against the Yankees, so that'll be 2 big series coming up. The running doesn't. They played some tough teams recently. The running doesn't look quite as challenging with the 7 games against the A's. Everyone seems to want to play the A's, don't they? But 6 games against the O's and 3 against Pittsburgh. They're all last place teams, which doesn't guarantee you anything, but you'd sooner be playing them sort of teams than top teams. As a team themselves, there's a mixture of youth. The young lad, the top prospect, Roman Anthony, dare I say, looking like a young Ted Williams. He's just penned an 8-year deal, and there's Sedan Rafaela, who's playing an all-star performance all over the field. You've got Alex Bregman, who is terrific, and even Trevor Story is doing very well this year with his first real injury-free season since signing. So I do remain hopeful. I think they'll probably just make the playoffs, and then after that, as you say, there's not that many super great teams in the American League. So if you're in the playoffs, you've got a chance. And Alex Cora, I agree with him, says we've got a good team and they're playing good baseball. They just need the starting pitching to hold up. And, they always seem to hit and score runs, Boston, but it's a starting pitching that's done well, but will it hold up? I think Crochet is the real ace, but he's already pitched much more innings than he's done in his career so far. So, it might be asking a lot, but I'm hopeful. It's a rest day today, I think. We'll see if they can regroup after the loss to Houston. That's pretty much.
No, absolutely. And I think you make a very good point that as long as the Red Sox are in the mix, as long as the Mariners are in the mix, as long as the Tigers are in the mix, once we get into the postseason, hopefully, there definitely are fewer kind of outstanding teams, I would say, at this point, and obviously in the postseason, anything can happen. But not a postseason for the White Sox, Dave Jr., but an improvement from last season, and are we looking at a ball club that has turned a corner and is heading in the right direction?
It's really exciting just now, Richard. It really is for the first time in a couple of years. The White Sox are really fun to watch. So we just came off of a series loss against the Tigers there, and it seems to be quite a recurring theme for the White Sox. Over those 3 games, I think we had 2 really well contested pitchers' duels. The Tigers came out on top of 2-1 and 1-0. And then the middle game for the White Sox was quite a heavy victory for us. So we seem to, over a series, outscore teams at times, but often lose the series. Although having said that, we've swept quite a few teams since the All-Star break. In fact, for a team who historically, and it is historical, have been so bad over the last 18 months, since the All-Star break, the White Sox are 12 for 12. which is a very, very respectable record. One of the most exciting parts for the White Sox, so although I could talk all day long about the rookies that have come up this year, our main prospect for the last 3 or 4 seasons has been quite a tall young shortstop by the name of Colson Montgomery. And he's had quite an interesting career throughout AAA so far, struggling to cope with the expectations of being a number one prospect, doing well, struggling again. And this season, he thought he would stand a chance of making the opening day roster, which he did not. So then within AAA, he struggled again, and the White Sox took quite an unusual move. They took him out of AAA entirely, and with the White Sox hitting director, took him to our spring training base in Arizona, worked with him exclusively for 10 days on his swing, his mechanics, his overall game, sent him back to AAA, where he found his rhythm again, and he was called immediately up to the big leagues. He's a very rangy shortstop. His defensive plays have been excellent, and we were kind of waiting to see a little bit of offense there from him. Again, he played 10 games before the All-Star break, but really interestingly, since the All-Star break, before the All-Star break, he had 10 games, no home runs. In 24 games since, he's hit 10. 10 absolute bombs that have reached the concourse at Guaranteed Rate Field. I think he's the top home run hitter since the All-Star break. The White Sox are have hit the most home runs since the All-Star break. Apparently, during this time off, they had some real discussions about how they wanted to approach the rest of the season. And it's paying dividends. I think we had a good series against the Mariners. We've had some good results against the Red Sox. We've had some good performances against the Tigers, if not the results that you would hope for. But that's just talking about Colson. But there's so many rookies that are really making their way just now. Next season as well was meant to be a bit of a restructure for the White Sox, but I think fans are so excited by the potential this year. Is the big ask of the board of the organisation, if we were to start adding and spending some money now, in the off season, is a potential to compete next year. Now that might be too soon in my opinion, but there's a real basis there of a good solid team. Just now we're fun to watch. We take matches late into innings. We're always in games. We're very rarely really put away. And we're exciting to watch, Richard, it's exciting just now. The fans deserve that. It also goes hand in hand with the Cubs' kind of demise over the last 24 games. Their poster boy, Pete Crow Armstrong, a fantastic player, has took a bit of a nosedive. At the same time, the White Sox poster boy has taken off. So there's quite a lot of crosstown rivalry there as well just now. But how about yourself? The Mariners seem quite an interesting talking point going into the next few weeks. Running really well, quite an interesting, hard-hitting team there. A lot of good moves during the kind of trade deadline. How do you feel about the Mariners?
Yeah, I mean, in a good place. I do think we are facing a kind of a bit of an acid test. Our next few series, we've got some tough opponents coming up. I think the Mets and the Phillies amongst them. So I think we'll learn a bit more about the kind of the potential. But yeah, very excited. Cal Raleigh's still, still setting records as a catcher for the home runs and stuff like that. Slowed down a little bit from the pace he was setting pre the All-Star break, but that was, that was never going to be sustainable over the course of a full season, I think. Interestingly, Eugenio Suarez brought back, very popular acquisition, fantastic player. His bat's been really pretty cold since he came back. He was right up there, just I think a home run or two behind Ohtani and Judge and Cal Raleigh for much of the early part of the season until we brought him back. But his bat won't stay cold forever. So I'm hoping that actually in this final stretch, he'll rediscover his kind of home run form and his hitting form. But we definitely, I look at that lineup and really top to bottom now for the first time. It's competitive, I think, with anybody in Major League Baseball. Our pitching hasn't been quite as top notch as it was last year, but it's still pretty good. And if we can get closer to where we were last year, go from being a kind of top 10 pitching unit to a top 5 pitching unit, and I've got the arms in there to do that. Seattle got a fantastic pitching rotation. Then I think There is no reason we can't enter the postseason, assuming we get there with real hope and optimism. It does not feel like the typical Seattle Mariners season, so I just hope I'm not going to regret those words once we get to the end of the season. But Alan, what are your thoughts more generally about the wider world of baseball, if you like?
Well, I think going on from those conversations, and I've thrown it in a few times that like the Tigers were this best team in baseball, and that's now the Brewers, and the Brewers are marching ahead. But when you look at the American League and the National League without the Brewers, it's pretty tight at the top, as they say, and they've played 120 games practically, but they're all top teams there are quite close. You look at Boston are only 4 wins behind the Tigers in 70. So anything could happen there. That getting the top 2 places seems important in terms of keeps your pitchers going away from the wild card series and what have you. What will make the difference? I think like in terms of the Tigers, what if we hang on? What makes a difference for the 7 or 8 teams who are round about 65 to early 70s to be the ones to get over the line and to win their division or pick up one of the wild card places? I don't know if you have any immediate thoughts on that.
I wonder if momentum, Alan, because we've talked about in the course of a full, 160 odd game season, how you're going to have periods where you lose quite a few in a row, and hopefully periods where you win quite a few in a row. So I guess it's what teams are going to enter the streak, the positive streak. Who are those who are going to find that momentum to maybe clinch their division and maybe secure a place, at the seedings in the postseason. So to me, it's momentum. Is that the teams that find that in this last section of the regular season. But I'm not sure if either Yorkshire Dave or Dave Jr. have any thoughts on that.
I think you're right about momentum, and there's 40 games is still quite a lot can happen, and you're right. You can every team goes through a winning streak and a losing streak, don't they? And if that losing streak comes at the wrong time and one of your rivals, coincides with them on a winning streak, and this was the criticism. It's not just the fact that Boston didn't really trade big at the deadline. It was also coupled with the fact that most of their their rivals, like yourselves, the divisional rivals, Yankees, really did sort of bust their gut to really improve their teams and show that they were. I mean, the Yankees especially, I don't really know what's happened with them actually. It's sort of every time you look, they sort of seem to be losing a game and making lots of errors. Has Judge been injured? I think he was out for a while, wasn't he? Maybe there was missing him, but as I say, you're absolutely right. You need to be. At least there's a time when you need to be beating your rivals. So them 2 series against the Yankees could be massive for the Red Sox. I'm quite looking forward to it, actually.
Football equivalent of 6-pointers, isn't it? Those games where you both get that win in your column, but ensure there's an L going into the column of your rivals for the division as well. And on the subject of 6-pointers, a football phrase, we are well used to being some of the few in Britain with a real interest in baseball, but there has been a little bit of an uptick of late due to the success of the Great Britain under-23 baseball team, who secured a historic European Championship victory just over the last week or so, and it's it feels very unusual but nice to be talking about baseball and British achievement as well. So do we think, is this part of a broader kind of awakening in Britain round about the sport of baseball, do we think?
Dave, you might have had a few observations on that. You had a slightly unique watching angle on the GB under-23 baseball team.
Yeah, it was amazing, really. As you know, we were over in the Czech Republic or Czechia, and we'd spent a week or so in Prague, and then we went over to Moravia, and we were actually in what's probably the second city, or I don't think that people of Brno would like them to be described as that. But before we went out that day, Lorraine said there's baseball on the TV. There's Great Britain are playing the Czech Republic, Czechia. So anyway, we thought, well, we're going out, and we were going to this very old, well-known, famous bar, and we walked in, and terrific bar, goes straight into the top 10 of which bars in the world, of which there are more than 10. And it's called U Lahovky. And the guy, it was an old-fashioned bar where there's the traditional thing in Czechia is that there's a guy who pours the beer behind the bar, and it's usually Pilsner or Köln or whatever they're selling. And then there's waiters who deliver the beers to your table, and as soon as you finish one, they're there with another, unless you tell them to stop. It's a great system. And the guy had the baseball on the TV. So, and he was definitely, you could tell he was definitely watching it and interested, and was talking to someone about it. And we called in, and the game was it was 7-0 to Czechia, and so we thought, oh well, yeah, fair enough. Quite good to see the home team win. But the bottom of the third inning, Great Britain hit back with 5 runs. And so we had a game on our hands, and it was really good to watch. And I think they scored another 4 runs. I think although it was being played incredibly, it was being played in Czechia. We were in Brno, and it was a town which I hadn't heard of before called, I'm probably not going to pronounce this correctly, but Trebic, I think is, and it was only about 50 or 60 miles away from Brno. So had we known in advance, I don't know whether we might have tried to go out there. But I think Great Britain were effectively the home team. They were batting last, and in the 6th inning, they put 4 runs on the board to lead 9-7. And I didn't realize, but it was a 7-inning game, and they closed it out, and of course won the game. They didn't have to actually bat in the 7th inning, and to say that they were celebrating doesn't really do it justice. They were really going wild, and I think that's the first time Great Britain have won the European thing. So yeah, it was a great achievement, and it was really interesting to watch it live. In fact, the next night as well, Lorraine's a big ice hockey fan, and there was ice hockey tournament on as well. I think that was under 21s, so it was all happening. Yeah, it was really. I think baseball's quite a big thing in Czechia actually, and surprisingly, normally the BBC is great for coverage of sports like this, but I don't think they really had this covered, so it wasn't really on our radar. So hopefully that success might, sort of publicise the game a bit more in the UK.
Yeah, it must have been exciting. So coming across that in the home country there, I think we've seen that with other sports with Great Britain, UK. If we get into something and we invest in it, and quite clearly they've employed the right coaching and management staff, and they've put a good infrastructure in place, and we do well in international sports. So with the right investment in people, it's encouraging to see what's happened there. And I know the World Baseball Classic was it last year we did pretty well, and I think it's next year will be the next one. There will be baseball in the Olympics in 2028 in LA. So yeah, we might not get gold or whatever in the Olympics, but I think we're doing well. So Dave, what do you think?
Sorry, I'm just looking at Dave's face there, and all I can imagine is a young John Kinsella from Field of Dreams when he's talking to an old Ray Kinsella, and he says, "Am I in heaven?" I can just imagine Dave sitting there being waited on hand and foot. There's baseball on, there's ice hockey. He's been given beer after beer, and he must just be thinking, "Am I in heaven?" No, you're in Czechia.
I'm assuming as well you never bothered learning the Czech word for stop either, Dave.
No, I do know the phrase "Ještě jedno, prosím." Another one, please.
You've learned the import. That's like page 1 of the Czech dictionary learning, isn't it?
But it is good how they do it though in the traditional pubs. Especially there's one called the Golden Tiger, which is really famous, and you have to sort of queue to get in, and that's really old school. And there's guys going around with pints of the stuff, and as soon as they see you are finished, they will put one down, and the guy next to me says the only way to stop them doing it is put a beer mat on top if you want to have a wee rest. But no, it's not quite that. They're not quite that insistent, but that's the way they do it there, and the people, the per capita, they are the champion beer drinkers of the world, the Czech people.
I think we're starting to see why Dave spent 3 weeks over there.
That was good.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say too much about it, at fear of offending anyone. But when you talk about them serving like that, I ticked off a wee bucket list thing the other week. I was lucky enough to see the last day of the Tour de France in Paris. But I think that's a cafe in France is a classic situation where they don't come and keep refilling. It's like they've worked out you're British, so it's like how long can we ignore this customer for? Seems to be the style of many French places, which are beautiful places to go and visit. But I need to find a way of convincing them that I'm a local and you can come and serve me and be friendly to me.
So they're frosty in France, but it's been, as we started off the show, it is hot here in Scotland, and we look forward to the rest of the MLB season heating up and hopefully ending up with success for our teams. But that's it for this week. Highland Bullpen Baseball Podcast.